Hello everybody, and welcome back. This time around we're going to be taking a look at the Gilneas mod that I've been doing, but I thought it would be a good idea to actually show you what this zone looks like from the other side. So this is, of course, the Gilneas entranceway in Wrath of the Lich King. And you can't really see from the gate, you can't see much. There's a couple of trees, there's a road, but as soon as you enter the area, you will realize that it's just nothing. It's just a ginormous area that is surrounded by really untextured mountains and just plain untextured land. So there's really not that much to it. Now, the mod that I have will change all of that, and we'll make this into actual terrain, and we'll try and actually get as close as possible to Gilneas in Cataclysm. However, using the resources from Wrath of the Lich King. So let's make that switch right now, and let's take a look at what that is looking like. Well, you just saw essentially what was the area before the initial mod, and now we're taking a look at the mod as it's currently going. In other words, this is how far I've gotten into mod. So there's a lot of like rough edges. Just look at this road, and it's pretty crap, and there's not much detail. There's some walls, there's some forests, and obviously I didn't continue texturing the road down this way. Over there in the distance you can see Gilneas City, or what will be the capital. I guess it's called Gilneas City. I don't know much. I never played Cataclysm, so I only have pictures and maps and certain things as a reference. So there is the city, and it sort of sits in this kind of crater thing surrounded by mountains and whatnot, and then there's mountains and levels and a big, ginormous empty cave in there. It's actually quite big. You've got a bit of farmlands and decrepit windmills, and there's no detail to be had. Even the ground effects isn't correct. That's something that I will hopefully wipe clean and apply when I'm sort of satisfied with the general outlook of things. So we're going to go over this area, and I essentially tried to keep somewhat the same layout of the principal areas according to the Cataclysm maps. And other areas, it was just, again, like I said, is interested in micro environments, so you can see some lighthouses, which are also according to Cataclysm there and whatnot. So now we're going to go into the city itself, and as you can see, I use some of the northern human buildings. They're not quite Victorian, but they're Victorian enough, so to speak. So we've got a few things here. I'm going to change the bush placement and the buildings. Everything is very rough, so there's nothing here really that is all that final. It's very rough, and I worked with the terrain, so I'm not working details first. We have, of course, the Gilnean flag, which is the only custom model that we've brought in, and yeah, so you can see it's pretty cool. It's a pretty cool little environment. It definitely screams an environment, I guess, similar to that which you see in Cataclysm. But I'm not really, all that interested. Now here is obviously another bridge, which is sort of like wonky. I want to barricade it and make it a little bit more complicated, or not complicated, look more complicated, but easier to actually just access. So I'll be doing that, but in the meantime, it's sort of like that. Right, so now we're on the other side of the city, and again, there's not that whole lot of land to work with, but I mean, there is considerably a lot more than what was here before. So a lot of this obviously has to be polished out and done properly, but it's okay. So now here we're coming to the port, and the port needs more detail. There's going to be some sort of shops and fishmongers and all sorts of things to sort of like really make this port work well, and we'll have a plank here, and it'll be great. We might have like an anchor here, a lot of stuff. I think it'll look real nice. The terrain is very irregular, which I like, and there's things that I have to fix, of course, you know. But I wanted to actually make a series out of this, and this is probably the best way to do it. Is to start when it's very rough and then progressively show you how it gets better and better. So yeah, here we have essentially a view of the city, the surrounding areas, the mountain, a lighthouse that's on this edge, and so great. Now we also caught a glimpse of another one of the sort of micro environments that we saw there, which was the what is going to be the equivalent of, though not as grand, but the equivalent of whatchamacallit, Greymane Manor, I believe. So if we go through here, sort of irregular, and just come up through here, and boom, there we go. We have a manor, and these gates and fences don't really work, so I'll probably change them to something else. But there you go. You have another sort of like hidden house. We get to look at the... Oh, we had a little bit of a lag spike there for who knows what reason. Yeah, we get to look at the sort of like craggly area of the mountain there. Now, we're going through this area. Of course, a lot of this will be, you know, wooded and have more details. It's pretty barren right now. I'm hoping in this area to set up a cemetery of sorts, and possibly have some crypts. Yeah, the rest are sort of things and details that we have to like figure out, but we still haven't gotten to that part. So now if we move on to sort of like the second plateau level here, we will come across this fort, and this fort is at the base of sort of the Gilneas wall, and there's ladders to get to the top, and cranes and whatnot. I think it's a little bit of an homage to Castle Black, so this will probably be called Fort Black. And it was sort of a happy accident. I had put the wall in, I'd had mountains in this area, and I thought, there really needs to be something here. And then I saw, I remembered these old sort of decrepit fort buildings that I'd seen before, and I thought it was a good idea, and I think it works. And I think that provided some tender care and love in texturing and doing things like that, it'll look better. So here we have sort of a misty forest area, and the mist will probably be a prevailing factor across this entire land. We do want it to be very misty and foggy. There's some texturing to be had, some working with the terrain here, and also the ground effects once they come in, and they won't be these odd green things that are just all over the place. Should be great. Now, we come out through here, and we have, we're coming to this other little town, which is another town that it's found somewhere else, and we also have access to this. Unfortunately, what happens with this lighthouse, because I actually did want it to be a nice environment, and I'm going to have to end up leaving it there and blocking it off. What happens is that once you get pretty much to this point... Hello? Yeah, actually, I just realized we're not seeing it because I don't have the GUI enabled. But what happens is you start getting fatigue because it's actually in the ocean, deep waters of the ocean. So that place, I will, you know, pretty it up and leave it on the outsides, but it'll probably be locked out, and it'll only work if the server decides to. Oh, look at this! This is great. This is exactly the type of climate that you want for Gilneas. So we are here, and we are at this sort of little town on the other side of the map. And as you can see, we really can't acknowledge it's another small micro environment, quite away from the huge capital city. And yeah, we'll be working on it. We'll be putting a lot of details into this, and it'll be great. I think it'll be great. There's a lot of work. It took me a lot of work to even finish up the Elven area, and that was sort of easy to deal with because they were individual zones. It's the same number of zones. This mod is the same number of zones, but it is entirely it's entirely different in terms of I don't really know what happened there. Is there a zone here? It looks like... Oh no, maybe we were just crossing a zone, so it took a little bit of time for it to rain. This is six ADTs, 6 zones put together, so it's a lot more open space to deal with. And I think that I'll work a little bit more on the terrain and whatnot, but look at it. Oh, look at that. Just imagine adding some more stones and things, and oh boy, I'm telling you, it's gonna be great. Yeah, so climate is a bit weird. I don't know if it's because of how the regions on the map have been set, but apparently if we're here, it's raining, and if we're closer to that starting zone, it's not, which is fine. I want to see if okay, so it sort of goes through like half a city. I'm pretty sure actually that it has to do with the regions currently in the map, but yeah, we'll take care of it. We'll make sure that everything is actually in one region, so you don't end up walking through the city and then suddenly as you're walking through the city, it just gets dark and raining. Oh, look at that. It does look really great. You can see from the corners, you can see the lighthouses, and it'll be great once we get some vegetation in here, some trees, some shops and whatnot. It will look pretty cool, and we'll have tons of fun with it, hopefully. Anyways, that's been this look at the Gilneas mod for Wrath of the Lich King, and I'll be back as soon as this progresses into something more polished. So until then, everybody, take it easy.